GM. This is the Web3 Writers Hour, September 19th, 2023. I'm C.D. Demitio, joined by my co-host. Wait a minute, he's not up on the stage. Edward Carpenter. We've got Odd Writings here. Riona Morgan is joining us. We'll get her up on the stage too. Edward, I've sent a co-host invite to you. Hopefully we'll get you up here soon. There's Cryptoversal. Man, the gang is all here. Okay, so let's say good morning to Odd Writings since you're up. How are you, my friend?
Hey, can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Lima Charlie, as they say.
Oh, cool. Okay, this is the first time that I am connecting to a Twitter space using my desktop because apparently I no longer need an emulator to speak. They added the ability on the desktop version. And so here I am testing it out live.
Sounds good.
The excitement never stops at the Web3 Writers Hour. That's awesome. I'm glad they added that functionality. It's an important thing. Oh, we had Edward. What the heck? We lost him. Cryptoversal, I see you're here. Welcome. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, CD?
I'm doing pretty good too. I love yesterday you made a post that you're incredibly optimistic, and it was such a positive post that I was like, is he being sarcastic? But I think you were serious, right?
I was being serious. I was also alluding to there was an airdrop of optimism from the Optimism Foundation. And so unexpectedly, I got a little bit of optimism in my wallet, and was not expecting it. It's been a long time since something like that has happened. So I think that's a good sign.
That's a really good sign. I'm going to have to check my wallet because I use Optimism, so hopefully something there. I think we've got Edward Carpenter now. Riona Morgan, we see you, but let's see if Edward's up.
Hopefully I'm here. Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you just fine, sir. I know
Awesome.
saying up is like a double entendre with you because it's 2 a.m. I think where you're at, but how are you today?
It's actually 4 o'clock because I'm no longer on the West Coast. I'm back on the East Coast. But yeah, so early days.
Well, that seems much more reasonable. Riona Morgan, we haven't heard your bright, shiny voice yet. Let's hear. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. I still have this crazy allergy cold, so my voice is a little nuts, but I'm so great. I'm doing very well, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you.
You are so great. Hey, so Edward has suggested a really great topic, I think, for this morning for us to start out. We can just dive into it, and then we'll check in a little bit and see what everybody's looking at, what they're working on, things like that. But Edward, do you want to introduce that topic? I love it, by the way.
Sure, I can go ahead and throw a couple of things out there. And the first one was kind of, what are the best tech solutions that people have found for things like, pre-mint and mint platforms. And also I kind of was then thought maybe it's more interesting to talk about, we're very limited in our own resources of time and attention. So should we be focused on monetization or building reputation? What is value in our particular niche of NFT space? So that was, I guess, my question for the group, and I have a few thoughts on it, but would love to hear what other people think first, perhaps.
I think it's a balancing act. Well, I guess obviously it's a balancing act between networking and monetization, because sometimes one can lead to the other, but more often than not, it doesn't. It just kind of, if it happens, it happens, and so it's more of a chance thing. I mean, I found when I try my networking thing, I end up maybe making a connection unexpectedly several days or weeks afterwards. It's not something that's immediately measurable. So it's really hard to say what the optimal sort of mix between the two is.
So I'm staying quiet to give other people a chance to talk because sometimes I feel like me talking too much discourages other people from talking. But I think it's a really great and provocative question, Edward. I mean, the bottom line is that value and monetization, influence and monetization, they sort of go hand in hand in this space. So if you have a louder voice, metaphorically speaking, then it's likely that you're able to reach more potential readers, which means more potential book sales. So as writers, I feel like building that aspect is much more important than finding a way to monetize in a sort of NFT sense. But I do want to hear. I know Cryptoversals, you're always doing different things in this space, and I bet you have some pretty deep thoughts on all of this.
Well, I've had to readjust my expectations enough that I feel like I'm constantly readjusting them, and it's gotten to the point where monetization is sort of like a thing that's over the horizon. For me, I have an interest in the technology. I have an interest in developing a community, but it doesn't seem like the environment is really conducive to generating huge amounts of enthusiasm that translate into monetization currently. So I think my focus now is it's doing interesting things, trying new things, picking up new skills. And recently I've been looking back over the 2 years that I've been in the space, and things that I maybe tried and set aside, and rediscovering them. And this week I kind of rediscovered the back in January. It was the Lunar New Year, Year of the Rabbit, and I did a 8-part release of a story vignette and some poetry, and then I kind of forgot about it and moved on to other things. And it's been interesting to say, well, no, now that this is still on the blockchain. It's on the blockchain forever. There's one of those pieces is actually still minting and mintable, and people can go in and grab it if they wanted to. But we're coming up on, in a few months, another Lunar New Year, and it's going to be the Year of the Dragon, and it would be great to revisit and then build on the past, and create a legacy and create a tradition and create something annual. And I would love to find someone for whom this Lunar New Year is something I've always enjoyed, but it's not part of my personal heritage. I would love to find someone of East Asian heritage to take over the project and be a project manager and really make it a celebration that's personal to them. I have a few months to find someone. I'm hoping someone steps forward, but I think there's a potential to build a community around just that, and it's something that a week ago I had completely forgotten about it. It was completely out of my mind, and there's all kinds of artifacts on the blockchain that people have created that may be forgotten in the moment, but have the potential to become something big in the future. What do you think, Edward?
So I actually found that rather interesting. You mentioned the idea of just experimenting with new things, learning new things, and I actually learned some interesting stuff just today. I've been really struggling with the latest issue of Arts and Poetry. My big sticking point had first been getting video integrated at all. But then it was I could not get the sound to play. The video was playing in the interface, and sound would just not work. And it worked in Firefox, but Chrome is the big browser, and it turns out even Bing, I think, is written in Chromium. So this fact that I could get the video but not the sound, it turned out most of what you found in searching was about settings in Google. It turns out it's actually about the codec, the audio codec that you use, and it turns out there is a fix there, but it wasn't. There will be other people who might benefit from having this knowledge somewhere. And so, one question is, it tied back to my original thing. Where's the best place to share all the little tips and tricks that we learn? But that idea that you had gone back and rediscovered something, it turns out that, and again, I was just going through some of my old folders looking for things, and I came across a a short story that I started for Riedel's, Christmas contest, getting close to a year ago. And I didn't finish it in time for the contest. I would think I was actually working on the first issue of Arts and Poetry then. But yes, one of the questions, one of the things, like, how do you organize your old stuff? Because I think I have a lot of uncompleted short stories, essays, just essay ideas, poems I usually finish right off because they just kind of flow out. But that would be another, like, what's a best practice that we might be able to share in that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't have an answer right off the bat, but that reminds me of various things that I've discovered, because I tend to forget. For example, if I try to sell an NFT on OpenSea or some other platform, most of them have a time limit, so that, like, if I set it on a fixed price thing, it's maybe for 3 months or 1 month or whatever, and I invariably forget about that. And so after it doesn't sell, and then 3 months later it's no longer on sale, but I'm not notified of that. And I've often thought about that. There ought to be some way of organizing things in such a manner such that I can re-put something or relist something for sale at a strategic time, like before a holiday or before something that is somehow related to the content of the poem. So I just wanted to throw in the no answers for me, but but a recognition that yeah, that would be a really good tip to know have a strategy for.
That would be a good feature at the marketplace level to be able to set reminders, and I would imagine that's not too hard to implement. It's just a matter of the developers putting that in. Maybe we should give them a nudge in that direction.
Yeah, one of the other technologies I was going to ask people how they felt. Rian, I appreciate the invite to Warpcast. I've had a few conversations on there, have not yet gotten as involved as I might like. But one of the questions is, should we be pivoting to that platform? I don't know if anybody follows an account called NFT Gods, but he or she or they have done some really deep research into Twitter's algorithm, and it turns out that the algorithm punishes you for doing things like, say, having a conversation with a small account, or an account that has, like, whatever Twitter thinks is a bad thing, which I guess is maybe having more following more people than you follow. In some ways, that there's no reason I think anybody should be penalized for that. But should we be pivoting away from some platforms and to other platforms? Are there Web3 alternatives? Just curious what people might think about that.
Okay, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and it's a big problem because there's so many platforms, there's so many alternatives that it creates a sort of fatigue, and what Twitter has always brought is everybody's there, right? That's been the thing that X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, has brought, is that at least it's someplace that everybody has an account there. But we've got some of our people, we're so fragmented. Some are on Blue Sky, some are on they all seem to have good ideas, and X continually alienates and makes things worse and worse. But what X has is the ability to do these spaces, and X has, everyone here, so everyone has accessible. But that might change. I mean, Elon mentioned that he's going to turn it into a paying network. Now, I paid for the blue check. I think some of you out there also paid for the blue check. I paid for a year in advance because I thought that's the only way I'm going to be able to, like, not throw up and stay on this platform without getting so frustrated that I quit. Because I do feel like there's going to be some good things coming on this platform, but I could be totally wrong with that. So I don't know. In terms of, like, Warpcast and Farcaster and Blue Sky and Lens, they all seem to have good things. But the problem is they all have very limited communities, and it's just as hard to connect with people there, maybe harder than it is to connect with them here. I'm going to echo Odd Writings here. I don't have an answer. Like, I wish I did. I know Neil Stephenson, the guy who created the term metaverse, he's working with a platform called Linnea One. It's his platform, and they're sort of developing a social, writer-oriented metaverse that I have hope for. But at this point, I mean, there's a part of me that just wants to quit everything and go back to writing with a pen on paper.
You happen to have a link or anything for Lameo 1? Stevenson's actually one of my very favorite authors. I always look forward to his new books coming out and usually learn something about, thinking about the future from them. And I had not heard of that.
I'll see if I can find it. I'm going to hand the mic to someone else, and I'm going to find a post and put it up in the nest so it's there.
Yeah, definitely. Much love to Neil Stevenson, and much interest in anything he's developing. I know personally for me, social media has always been sort of a chore rather than anything that I really enjoy. I like connecting with people. I like seeing what my friends are up to. But in order to do that, I have to endure just so much garbage and increasingly with X, the just not knowing from day to day what new crazy twist will be introduced into the platform. The transition to Warpcast or Lens or Linnea, probably still would be a chore for me. I don't. It's not what I enjoy. It's not what I'm good at. But yeah, if you're gonna have a business or if you're gonna be a writer and be out there, it's something you need to do.
And Edward, I found that and I posted it up there. Riona, you're sort of a sparkling optimist in so many ways, and you've used a lot of these different social networks and these different ways of communicating with your community. What have you found? What's working best for you? Which ones are your favorite, and which ones do you find that not putting a lot of time in is a good idea?
Yeah, good questions, all of those. Twitter or X seems to be the place where all of the Web3 people congregate. And so you guys are all here. You're also on Lens, some of you, but it's gated. And so it's hard to get there. And then it's hard to interact with people there, particularly because you're not there, right? And then same with Farcaster or Warpcast or however we refer to that social media. That's and I like that T2 is associated with Lens. I like that Paragraph is associated with Farcaster, and I think that that's a very clever approach. But I keep coming back to Twitter. I keep coming back to X because this is where everyone is, just like what you were saying. But then I also spend a little bit of time on Instagram because that's where the Web2 people are. I spend a little bit of time on Facebook because that's also where Web2 people are. And same with Goodreads. And I even have a TikTok and I even have a Pinterest because I'm trying to walk the fence between Web2 and Web3. And it's such a different world being on Facebook versus being on Twitter. That's kind of this Web3 hub. And so it's just interesting, and I do honestly, I get fatigued with the social media stuff. And so there's some weeks where I can post on every single one and I'm just doing great, and then there's some weeks where I'm like, I'm not even going to post anywhere because I'm just tired and I have to have time to write. And so it just like pulls at you. There's so much to do. So that's the really honest feedback on that. But I also I love being able to interact with people, and I love being able to connect with people. And there's an awful lot of DMs, an awful lot of what project are you working on? How can I help? And what can we do? And so I really like that. I really like that connection that we find with our networking capabilities. So, yeah, does that help?
Yeah, I would say that definitely helps. I mean, what it sounds like is even the most optimistic among us are frustrated by the wide variety of choices and the amount of time that it takes to engage with all that. But it also sounds like none of us have a very good answer for it, which is sad. But I guess that makes misery loves company. We can say that, or and at least we're all looking. So maybe, when we do find it, we'll all be there because we all communicate and we're all, share multiple lines of communication, which is pretty great.
Well, and I would jump in and say Edward mentioned him, NFT God. His posts are really powerful and so informative. So if you guys don't follow him, I would definitely recommend. I never recommend to follow this person, but that's not a Web3 writer, But he really is. It's really interesting, and his take on how this works, and it's like almost he has Elon's ear or vice versa, and so he jumps in and he'll actually give code, screenshots of code that are like, these are the kinds of posts that Twitter doesn't like. And these are the kind of posts that Twitter does like. Like currently, Twitter likes the long form posts, like something that's longer than the normal tweet. And the being the real person. And so I haven't jumped into that trend yet because I'm working on a project. And so I just am like, next month I'll work on it. But just maybe jump in and follow him and see the things he's adding to this conversation.
And I have to say here that I hate algorithmic determination in a social platform. The reason why I join social platforms and the reason why I follow people is because I want to follow them. And when an algorithm is taking away that ability from me, oh, I hate it. I hate it. If I follow you, I want to see, the pictures of the food that you're eating. I want to see your stupid, funny joke that nobody else maybe thinks is funny except me and you. I want to see about your travels and your family and stuff like that. And the fact that algorithms decide this kind of post is good, this kind of post is bad, it makes me livid, honestly. I just want a social network that does not do that at all. Go ahead, Edward.
Yeah, so it's I do have a hack for that, but it raises a concern for me, I guess. The hack is you can just create a list of the people that you're most interested in that content, and then instead of accepting the default timeline that Twitter gives you, you just open that list, and that'll have like kind of the latest and greatest from those people. The problem with that, I think, is that let's assume that everybody would kind of like that experience. And we're small group animals, and I think 150 is the max. My wife and I often talk about this. It's about the maximum people that you can interact with regularly. So if let's say you follow 150 people, you kind of max out at that. And you wouldn't be able to really, let's say you had 600 people you followed, but let's say you also had like 10,000 followers. What does an ecosystem look like if everybody had 15,000 followers, but also followed 15,000 people? Because otherwise, it's like we're much more interested in some people's, globally, I guess, thoughts and experiences and pictures and whatever than others. So that's just one way that you can do it. I actually have a bunch of different lists for things that are of interest to me. And I guess you could be featured on or follow other people's lists. But one thing is, if we're all making a Web3 writers list, that goes back to kind of the duplicative nature of things. Like, can we not have one person who has the master list, and then we all just open that list when we want to see what's what with our Web3 friends? So that's just a thought and kind of a curiosity.
It's interesting. I like the 150 thing. I've heard that for years, that like that's like the number of actual like friends and close acquaintances that you can have. And so, if we were to do that, like let's say a social network came along and it said, okay, your max number of follows is 150 people, but then I follow Cryptoversal and Cryptoversal follows a different group than me. So when he's retweeting something from his network, I'm actually following him, but getting exposure to these other people. I feel like that could really work. Like a network that said you can follow 150 people. That's the max that you can follow. So pick them carefully. And sometimes you would be like, I'm not really getting value from following Cryptoversal, or Riona retweets everything Cryptoversal does. And so I can see that, or vice versa. I'm not trying to single Cryptoversal out. And you would change it and add someone else. But it's a really interesting idea, Edward, that 150 person as a a limiter.
Yeah, it's another interesting number, and yeah, I think Tim Ferriss says that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I think he was maybe talking about real life, but how many of us spend time with a certain subset of people in social media as well? And what does that do sort of to our average, not in terms of the algorithm, but in terms of kind of raising or lowering our performance? I think that's why I often, go out of my way to come to this group, is because I feel that you guys tend to raise my average. And maybe 5 is not the magic number. Maybe Tim's a bit off, but he's a pretty smart guy. So again, just maybe something to think about. And also the other question is, are we raising the average of those around us, or are we lowering it? So,
well, this is probably the group that creates my average. We've got right here. If we had Quanta and E.R. Donaldson in, this is the group that and also Indefatigable. This is the group that I'm spending the most time with online. So it's a pretty nice average. I love it. But hopefully I'm not dragging y'all down. That's what I'm hoping. So, okay, speaking of dragging down, so this has been interesting, and I feel like we could go here a lot further, and we can do that if you guys want to, or we can actually sort of move on to another topic. And one of the things that I was thinking about this week, we touched on it yesterday in VMGM, was royalties. Now, it feels to me like royalties are no longer a part of the conversation, because if you don't have the platforms that are enforcing it or the code that's enforcing it, then it's going to be lowest common denominator. Everybody's going to go pick 10 apples, and then when someone picks 11, they're all going to pick 11 and 15 and 20, and pretty soon people will be stripping the trees from the apple tree or the branches, making fires, and then no apples for anyone. So royalties feel like they're gone to me, but Cryptoversal has some thoughts on that, and he's been using some different platforms that are enforcing royalties, and I would really like to have that conversation with all of you. Like, are royalties still something as writers that we can have a conversation in terms of Web3 blockchain writing about?
I think, yeah, I think they are. It's, by the way, excuse me for butting in like this, because I've since noticed, now that I'm using the desktop version, there seems to be no way for me to raise my hand. So if I want to speak, I'm just going to have to butt in.
We're all friends, man. Just butt in. I think, especially for a small group of friends like us, we can all just interrupt each other or jump in when you want to. See, yeah. I just did it to you.
Yeah, that's good. I'll just say real quick on the royalty thing. I mentioned OpenSea earlier. I've continued playing around with OpenSea because I've noticed that when I post something there, it defaults to having you support the royalty, and it actually shows like a nice little hand holding a heart that says like, "Oh, look, I'm such a good person. I'm selling this. I'm trying to resell this NFT, and I'm supporting royalties. And see, look how good I am. I'm supporting royalties." So I can look at it, sarcastically that way, but at the same time, I have yet to see anybody repost an NFT or attempt to resell an NFT on OpenSea without that. So I think maybe, even though OpenSea is not, forcing it, I have a feeling that people are going to still, or at least a majority of people are going to be supporting royalties, just even if it's voluntarily.
So my take is that royalties are a very important part of the ecosystem. They're one of the things that, I said it was what set Web3 writing apart in some ways from traditional and even, Web2 like Kindle. Because if someone was, bought 2 copies of one of my short stories on Kindle, there is no mechanism for them to resell one. And if they bought 2 hard copies of one of my books and then took one down to the local, used bookstore, I would never get any percentage of what they. So that this idea that we could have like royalties that, maybe when I'm 70 or 80 years old, I'm still occasionally getting some, that's an important thing, I think. And I believe that part of it, that's part of the advocacy mission. We as writers, but all artists should be communicating with people to say, if you're buying something that is a utility-based NFT or a prestige-based NFT, like one of my Enigma miners or a Bored Ape. And things were generatively made, and there thousands of them were minted. And someone made, some corporation made a lot of money off them already. Then maybe royalties are not a big deal. But if you're supporting an artist that you believe in, a poet or a writer or a visual artist, then you would think that you would want to always check the block for the royalty. But again, I think that we have to communicate that. Some people will intuitively understand it. I think as a collector, I would always want to resell with a royalty. I would also like a platform to default to that so that I have to make the effort to not sell. But that's just my thought on that.
To jump in with a terrible pun, I feel like maybe Blur has blurred the line here just a little bit. But like what these guys are going for is like this maximum trading volume. It's basically wash trading, right? Like if you're actually a serious collector and you actually care about the thing that you're buying and you care about the person that made that thing and you care about the person that you're selling it to, just the fact that you couldn't do it before, like where is the intrinsic reason not to, right? I mean, this is something that you couldn't do before, and that's the only reason that people weren't doing it.
True enough. I mean, the reason why royalties have become not a part of the conversation is because we've been catering to people who are in it for the money, not in it for the creativity, not in it for the art, not in it for the collecting, right? They're in it for the money. And that's been a problem for a while. I mean, as soon as the money comes into any space, you start getting the people that are there strictly for the money, and that's always a problem. Hey, I want to change gears for a second. I want to say hello to Jessica Artemisia, who I've invited to join us on the space today. She's just had a book come out, or she's just received the proofs from it. The cover looks amazing. If you follow her on Twitter, you'll be able to see the cover. She showed it. And also yesterday, the reason why I invited her, or a couple of days ago, was because she made a post about creating a platform and how the space is not ready for it. Jessica, good morning to you, and thanks so much for joining us here.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. It's been a while since I've been on a space, and this is really exciting. So I know that, there's been a lot of turmoil, and people are really down right now. So, yeah, it's good to get on here and everybody chat how we're gonna, move forward.
Well, that's what we're trying to figure out. I mean, as creatives and as writers, we all are going to keep creating and keep moving forward. But how we do it, that's the question, of course. Hey, so I wonder, for those who aren't familiar with you, could you introduce sort of what you've done in the space and maybe tell us a little bit about your book? Because we all love poetry, poets, and writers and books. So it would be awesome to hear about it.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. So I minted my first, I created a project back in June 2021, and I minted my first NFT in that project on June 2nd. And it was about creating a collaborative storytelling universe using the new ownership structure that NFTs allow. So it's instead of CC0, it would be CC to the person who owns that character. And so I was really excited about this, had it up and running, got it running in 2021. And then I sadly realized that, my collectors, they didn't want to be part of a storytelling universe, or they aren't fans. It's the fan base wasn't around. It was all speculators and flippers and traders, basically. So I started trying to figure out because I have a marketing background, digital marketing. I've been doing that for a while. I'd had digital marketing agency, then came into Web3 as a writer to develop new business models for writers. And I quickly realized that there was something really special in using a token to reward people in your community for participation in your community. So I started developing rewards programs and being a lore master, so guiding communities in writing the lore behind stories, behind their NFTs, creating the universes. And I did a manga with a project on Solana. And then I was really into rewards programs. So then I ended up working for Rug Radio. I created their rewards program and designed their decentralized media platform. So created 2 apps, one with Expand, designed the Expand rewards app, and designed the decentralized media app and system for Rug Radio. I don't know if Rug Radio is going to be using my design going forward. I don't know if they're like doing anything in the decentralized media, but that's what they say they're doing. So I designed it. And now I'm a poet, an essayist, kind of like, I'm also kind of, just writing whatever kind of comes to my head. I'm not really utilizing the space, I guess, in a marketing sense right now. I'm just talking with friends. That's all I'm doing.
Well, I mean, that's what we're doing here. And that's, I know this is your first time here, but the Web3 Writers Hour, we're a group of friends that gather and we have a conversation about a variety of topics every week. So for those in the audience, we've actually sent out invites. You're welcome to come up and talk with us too. And Jessica, it's amazing. I had no idea that you'd actually created the rewards program for Rug Radio. I've followed Rug Radio for a long time from far away, just sort of like being aware of it, I should say. But the thing I've always wondered is Rug Radio actually like, is it radio or is it like Twitter Spaces or is it podcasts? I'm so confused by what Rug Radio actually is. And
is it also just a rug?
Oh, Dylan, you're on fire today, dude. You must be. Are you a dad suddenly?
I think maybe I had like a kid out there somewhere just very, very recently here. I just wanted to jump in and say hi to Jessica. Hey, long time no chat. Hello.
Hello. Nice to see you. It's so funny. I just was going to go follow everybody and I'm like, damn, I'm following everybody already. I'm like, all my friends are here. So that's so great.
Okay, so tell about Rug Radio, if you don't mind. Because
I want to just say I don't want to talk about Rug Radio.
Okay.
Just don't invest. That's all I would say.
That's you don't need to say anything more. Hey, you know what? Speaking in terms of decentralized media, what I have gotten much more involved in is NFT Now and the Now. I think they're calling it like the Now Network now, and what they're doing. And they just recently released a podcast as an NFT, which was pretty cool from South Korea. I don't know. I feel like they actually are like walking the walk, and it's pretty neat to see that. Is anybody else following NFT Now or what they're doing?
I think
I was a little bit.
Yeah, I think I've just seen a few things from them, but I don't. It's very off and on. I don't follow them religiously, so I'm not. I could learn from this conversation.
I stopped looking. I kind of tuned out of the space for about 3 months after I quit Rug Radio. I'm kind of like more interested in tuning back in only because of the people, but not in the the personal relationships with like the people that I care about here, and maybe meeting more friends. But right now I'm pretty bearish on Web3 in general, to be honest. So it's really just the people and the values and ethos that attracted people to Web3. And if people are still in Web3 right now, then they probably very much reflect those values. And so I kind of like just love it here for the people. But I mean, the money only moves when the kind of like sociopathic influencers pump it. So it's just like a consolidation of, it's just a iteration of consolidation of every time like there's a pump, more money gets scooped up by, the kind of central people who pump and dump. So that's the only way there's no, like, I don't see money happening. I'm not here for the money. Let's just say I don't see that as like a way to build, to be honest. But the technology is interesting enough that, we can use it to build things that don't necessarily market to Web3, which is like 95% like flippers and finance bros and people just literally totally in it for the money. And you don't even want them in your communities because they'll trash it as soon as they lose $10.
Yeah, so that $10 price point is interesting to me because I think that early on, I think there was this idea that everything could or would be worth, 1 or 2 ETH at least, and everybody could get rich. And the reality is I think that, if you look at writing, for poetry or short stories or even novels, what the average collector can afford to pay generally is probably somewhere between, $5 and $20. I mean, that's what a book goes for. And many people in the real world, they get their books from libraries or secondhand stores, and they can't really afford to pay that much. And yes, every once in a while, you may have a patron like Cosimo de Medici, or someone who can afford to pay a huge amount of money for a one-off of something. And actually, the idea of, how do we leverage patrons to, sponsor perhaps putting out editions that then are free or very inexpensive for people. That's one of the things I'd like to try to do in the future. But yeah, it's just this idea that everything can or should be, a multi-$1,000 item, I think is a bit at odds with, sort of the macroeconomics of the market for writing. I'm just curious what other people might think about that.
I couldn't agree more. Even back in 2021, June 2021, I was like, I want people to buy my stuff for $10. I don't want it to be $100 transaction fee. I want people to buy my NFTs for $10, enjoy them, become a part of the community, read the stories, write their own stories, join in and create their own universes, their own worlds and everything. Like I'd rather have 1,000 people spending $10 than like one person spending $10,000. And yeah, and then also another thing to consider too is not just like NFTs, but also like having a token that you use, like on Matic or something like that, and you use it to reward people for liking, sharing, submitting lore prompts in your stories, or sharing your poetry on TikTok or something like that. That's a great way to get engagement and kind of like hack the algorithm. And, another way to reward your fans for just doing what they already do and building a much stronger connection with them, because it's a two-way street of value, like a value environment, a value ecosystem. And so that's what I was working on with rewards programs. I really, really believe in them. I am a decentralization maxi. I do believe in the power of creating decentralized fictional universes, creating decentralized business communities. Like I'm developing that now. That's like my next project to start with, and then I'm going to get back into writing. By the way, I just discovered, I don't know if anybody, for anybody who's a fiction writer, Claude AI is amazing for fleshing out stories, writing. I had such a great conversation with Claude. I'm like, okay, this is like the situation. This is it. And I'm like, flesh it out. And it fleshed it out. And I'm like, whoa, this is so good. And I'm like, okay, give me, the story outline. I'm like, change it like this, blah, blah, blah. And then you can move it into pseudo write and write the entire prose for you. And then you've got your first draft in like a week or just 2 days, honestly, of an entire story. So I just wanted to drop that little bit of goodness, expand rewards. So you go to @expandgg, XPANDGG, to have a rewards program to grow your community. Write with Claude AI and pseudo write. That's SUDOWRITE. And you've got this whole little thing going, and then you can use Third Web to create a token and for free, and create contracts for NFTs that you can just sell for $10. It's on Matic, but I guess a $20 transaction fee on a $10 item is just not that great. And at the end of the day, it's not about really collecting or speculating. It's about collecting something you love because you love it, So, and the utility that it can provide. Then you can set up a Discord that is token gated in different ways. You can make that token be what token gates people's access to the rewards program and that kind of thing. So that's what I'm working on. I just thought I'd like take that opportunity to just like drop some information, and hopefully it helps some people if you guys are, because we're all writers here.
Yeah,
Oh my God!
I can definitely tell you follow Robbie on Twitter.
Yeah, please, say, copy those links or put them in the comments somewhere. That would be very good to know. I would like to just add real quick. I think on the price points, the way I've seen it is that, or the way I tend to approach it is that I'm okay with Ethereum having high fees and then other blockchains having low fees, because that means that over time, I would imagine that they're gonna they're gonna have different populations, attending to them. So, for example, when I write a poem, if I do a one of one that I spend a lot of time on, I'll put it on Ethereum and put it at a high price, because if you have a high fee, the high price makes it seem irrelevant, right? So if someone's willing to pay, a $10 fee, but the poem itself is $100, people with a lot of money that are into prestige, they might be willing to do that, but very few of them. Whereas I'll do something else that maybe a haiku that I spend less time on, have it be much more affordable, and put it on either Matic or Tezos or one of the other blockchains. So actually, I see some benefit of actually being able to sort of stratify the audience that way. So just wanted to say that.
Yeah, totally. Actually, I completely agree with you. I would definitely do kind of more. Like if I were to do editions, for example, I wouldn't necessarily do them on Ethereum, because they would be for a different purpose. But that's actually a different thing. But like, you do want to have some things that are like, this sets kind of a tone for the value of the collectibles. So collectibles in terms of like, if I did a one of one, I did an oil painting or something like that. I'm like, let's say I'm an artist. Or if I have like the first edition of a book, or I have the proof manuscript for a book, the real life thing, that would sell for maybe tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, if it's that kind of offer in your environment, in your ecosystem, like ETH is for that, for sure. I definitely agree with you that like incorporating ETH as an element in your ecosystem is super important. But you don't necessarily have to build around ETH necessarily. You can be cross-chain. Tezos is really amazing, especially for like PDFs. If you want to put any writing on the blockchain. I hear Zora actually lets you mint PDFs now. Plus, here's another cool thing, real quick. I have not actually minted the PDF on Zora. I just heard that. So, take it with a grain of salt. And then also you can do .js or JavaScript. And I think LooksRare, like you can sell it and people can view it on LooksRare. And then there's a program, the free program on, I think it's free or like a couple of bucks on Steam that's called Tuesday. And you can create interactive novels with it. That's a .js. It's a JavaScript file that you can mint on LooksRare.
Wait, like choose your own adventure kind of novels?
Yep, exactly. Visual novels too. So it's visual, so you can use AI, which of course, there's like Midjourney or Dream Studio or like Stable Diffusion. So yeah.
Hey, not to take away from all the awesome places there are to mint. That's like super cool. But right at the beginning of what you were saying there, it sounded to me like you were saying that you like to mint a one of one, like a first edition of things to Ethereum, and then mint more editions to a different chain where it costs less at potentially like a totally different price point. And I'm not sure if that's actually where you were going or not. But if it was, I wanted to just, please ask you to say a little bit more, because that sounds freaking awesome. Like, that sounds like a really cool idea. I can't believe nobody's thought of that yet.
There's some issues with that though, because there's some people that they've had entire talks about this where someone gets a one of one, or they know that there's like 3 copies on, say, Matic, And so they assume that there's 3 copies, period. And they don't realize that there's another 5 copies on Tezos. And so some people are very much against that you should never mint the identical NFT on each one. So what I tend to do is I'll write a poem. I have like a little background, and then I'll put a little watermark on the top, and it'll say, the watermark will be very faintly visible, and it'll say Tezos, or it'll say, it'll basically be the blockchain of where I'm putting it. And then the collection that I make includes the blockchain in the name. So I'll have, strange haiku on Tezos, strange haiku on base, right? And so that way I can avoid the issues when people say, hey, this isn't actually a 101. It's like, well, they're actually slightly different. If you zoom in, you can see this has a watermark, blah, blah. So that gives me kind of a little out there, because you could get into some trouble, I think, at least reputationally, if you meant identical things on different blockchains. That's a point of contention.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. So what I meant by like minting different things on different blockchains, like, so it wouldn't necessarily be the same thing. Like usually, because I have different types of NFTs in my ecosystem. There would be like character NFTs that are individual characters that people can buy and write that character's story in the universe. And those would be one of one, but like on Matic. And because I just want people to like, basically it's an entry ticket into the world. They create their own avatar and they write a story, like kind of LARP as their avatar. It's kind of like a ticket into the universe, and it's their kind of, avatar in the universe. Now, if I felt that something was more valuable, and not just arbitrarily, I guess, like I wouldn't just say, oh, this is valuable. It would be like if I were to do something like more than just an AI generation, like something that I actually put hours of my time into, whether that's a book or a composition of art of some kind or an animation or something like that, I would probably sell it first as a one of one on Ethereum, or just mint it and then maybe sell it in 10 years when it's actually more valuable, because I don't expect to get royalties. So, by the way, I would sell half on it for my Ethereum contracts. I would sell half and keep half, just expecting not to get royalties if I sell anything at all. But then if I were to mint on Tezos or Matic or something, I would change it in some way. If it were something similar, if it were like, an edition or something like that of like a book, because maybe it has certain like rights. Like let's say, for example, let's say you can mint a PDF on Ethereum more than just on Zora, like on Manifold too. And you can view it in your Manifold gallery, which you can't. I've begged Richard to do it and he just like won't do it. It's free, so obviously like he does not have any, like he doesn't have to make stuff like that. If I were doing it on like one version of the book just for like collectability and visual pleasure beauty, I'd make a really beautiful edition using like, AI illustrations and maybe some animations. Maybe it's an interactive PDF, but it's visual, it's beautiful, it's a piece of art. And if I wanted to have like maybe make that something that people could take the text and actually rewrite it in their own version, or just, like open up the copyright of the text to people to reimagine and write like fan fiction from it, then I would maybe sell 30 or 300 copies of a very simple PDF on Tezos. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, you're giving me exactly what I want here. Folks, this is the only reason that I actually bought a Rug Radio membership NFT, what you're hearing right here. This woman is extraordinarily creative and she has lots of really cool ideas.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
It's true, Jessica, obviously. Like, I'm so glad that you accepted my invitation and you came and joined us today because, in the Web3 space, we're all in a little bit of like, I don't want to say dark, but we're all sort of like figuring out how to navigate in the dark at the moment and how to get through everything that's going on. And it's really cool. You brought some rays of sunshine. You brought an oil lamp into a room that the kerosene lantern was sputtering. So thank you for that.
You're so welcome. I love it. I love the people here. I love the ethos. I love the technology. I get a little burnt out sometimes on the realities, and disappointed with how things go. But we keep going. We keep persevering. We don't give up.
This is it. So, hey, I want to, we've got a few more minutes here. I just want to open up the mic if anybody has anything that they want to share. Edward, I see your hand up, but let's also, Riona, go ahead after he's done. Throw out what you've got going on, and Cryptoversal, Odd Writings. Dylan, please share before we go.
Yeah, just really quick, since we've got a few other poets in the room. Next week, working with the folks over at Lit, we're going to be doing a virtual reality poetry reading event in their Litadel on Cyber. And just wanted to throw out 2 days and find out, first off, it will be about this time, about 2 p.m. Eastern, and looking at either Wednesday or Thursday to try and deconflict Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, which several of us, I think, have other obligations. And then the question from the Lit team was, if I give them a list of poets, they'll actually do some promotional material, just little profiles and things like that. So if anybody's interested, if either Wednesday or Thursday is a particularly good day for you or bad, I'll take that into consideration. If anybody wants to say, yep, I'd like to be featured as a person, just reach out to me via DMs. I know I don't want to waste our time here in the forum.
I'll give a quick plug to the Worldview Ethics Project that I'm doing with Quest of Evolution. SA6 is going to be launching 1 week from today on this 26th of September, and that actually brings this project to a close. So we will have gotten all the way through it. This is the piece on distributed cognition that everybody's waiting for. And actually, if you want to read it early, there's 2 ways. You can go to my Scent page, and there's an NFT you can collect for $10, and you can get early access to all this stuff that way. Or you can jump on my friend tech, and there's a link in there in the chat. So.
And I just wanted to plug the tarot series I'm doing. It's basically I'm doing my look back at previous projects and bringing each one forward and presenting perhaps it as a building block. And would love to get some people involved on if something particularly strikes you on. Hey, I could take this and run with it. There's going to be lots of opportunities for that.
And I can jump in really quick and say, Jessica, it's so nice to meet you. And I'm so excited to hear all of the things that you are doing. Next, I want to say that Storyverse is reaching out saying that they are actually opening a call for writers. So if you're interested in being part of the Storyverse universe, they're broadening their IP all of the time. They just brought in Pudgy Penguins, I think is how you say that project. And so if you're interested in that, just go ahead and DM me, or you can DM Storyverse themselves and let them know that I sent you. So that would be wonderful. And then I've got some new things coming with the 7 Love Stories project. And so that's on the horizon, and we're just all building. This is so amazing. It's so exciting. So thank you so much. And Jessica, if you are not yet a member of PageDAO, please chat with Dylan, and he will help you do that, because we would love to have you join us at the PageDAO.
Okay, and I'm just going to close out with a few things here. So first of all, Dylan, I know that I owe you an essay for Quest of Evolution and Worldview Ethics. Second, we have the VMGM space every Monday morning. That's Vagabond Magazine. Good morning. Come join us on that, and you can check out the podcasts. If you haven't checked those out, we have a lot of fun. We talk about everything Web3, and that's Vagabond Magazine, the Web3 Lifestyle magazine. Also, we have this space every Tuesday at this time, so please come join us. And if you're a writer, if you have writer friends that are in the Web3 space or curious about the Web3 space, this is the conversation place for it to happen. And we want to encourage everybody to come join us. Finally, you guys know that I'm a Moonlings part of the team there. We're going to actually be issuing lore cards for our 3rd lore contest. That's coming up very soon. We've got the lore cards completely ready now. And for those of you who are also Moonlings, we're going to be having a contest to see if your lore can become canon, and also you can win some moonlings along the way. So that's all I've got. We've got a tradition here since I'm in Hawaii, which is why I always give times in Hawaii Standard Time, HST. But since I'm here in Hawaii and I love this ethic of aloha, where it means hello, it means goodbye, but most importantly, it means love, and we all breathe the same air. So we all open up our mics at the same time at the count of 3 and just spread a little aloha. So let's do that to close it out. 1, 2, 3.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha!